Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Tuesday Talks with Hannah. It's Tuesday, time for another talk. It happens to be the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. And so, inside this community, Heartfelt Wellbeing, we are looking at gratitude this week through yoga, through our practices, looking at Ayurveda, teachings from ancient times, and also tuning into we have this holiday in our Western culture that is we can take the opportunity to interpret it for celebrating gratitude. So Thanksgiving. So today's Tuesday talk is focused on the power of gratitude. And I'm sure you all have heard things about gratitude being helpful. And today, my hope is to tie in what we know from kind of modern gratitude practices used in mindset and counseling techniques and things like that into the ancient wisdom of why gratitude might be helpful and how it shows up in the ancient teachings. And so if you're here live, feel free to engage in this conversation with me. I love comments and questions. If you're watching the replay, you can give me a hashtag replay. And also know that all of these Tuesday talks that I do are also on YouTube. So if you are watching this on Facebook and know somebody who would love to see any of these Tuesday talks that I give, you can send them over to our YouTube channel. So get the word out, help spread the goodness of the Heartfelt community. All right, so gratitude. So let's look at where we are in this time in our lives, in the evolution of humans, really. We're in a time where the big focus, really, in our mainstream Western culture is on striving for more and better and always kind of looking towards what is next. If we achieve a goal, we're like, oh, that was so yesterday, and now we're on to the next thing that we're not quite sure we can achieve, and then we achieve that, and then we're like, oh, on to the next thing. Where we get into creating our own suffering is in this constant striving. It's not bad to have ambition. It's not bad to have goals in your life and to work towards things. What creates suffering is when we are in conflict with where we are, or in conflict with reality. And this is where gratitude or practices that lead to ease come in. And those of you who are in the Vitality Circle, my year-long program, know that that's one of the habits. Actually, the final habit that we practice is easeful living, because none of it really matters if we're not in a state of ease. How do we cultivate a state of ease? Well, we take care of our bodies and our minds and our spirits in multiple ways so that we are easeful in our physical being, we're easeful in our minds, we're easeful in our energy and our sleep. All of these pieces are really important. Today we're going to focus on that mind piece. And where gratitude comes in is it's a lens that we can look at our lives through to cultivate resilience, to cultivate positivity, to cultivate receptivity, to cultivate connection. Why not give it a try, right? So here are some things that gratitude does. And I'm going to be looking down here and looking at notes that I have on my computer. So gratitude has been shown in recent times to be very helpful in certain ways that have been studied. So there's a wide range of benefits for gratitude. Oh, I guess before I go into the benefits, let's talk about like what it means to be grateful. It's about perspective, right? It's not about pretending that everything is beautiful and awesome all the time, but it's about cultivating a perspective where you can see appreciation for what is. One of the teachings that has been so poignant in my life is from Eckhart Tolle, and this is from his book, A New Earth. And in that book, he says, in any situation, we have 3 choices of states that we can be in. And if we're not in any of these states, we are choosing to be in a state of inner conflict. And those states are, the first one is acceptance. Can we at least accept the reality of the situation? Acceptance. If we can't at least accept, then we're creating dis-ease. We're getting out of a place where we can be in a place of ease. We're creating inner conflict. So at least acceptance. The next option is enjoyment. Is there something about the situation that we could enjoy? It might not be what we expected. It might not be anything that we thought we might find enjoyment is, but could we possibly find enjoyment? And then the third option is enthusiasm. Can we cultivate a state of enthusiasm? I think about this from when I worked at boarding schools and we would have work projects. It would be like, chopping wood or shoveling gravel onto the pads or deep cleaning the outside of a building or any work project, right? And it was always an interesting study to me to see like who were the kids that showed up to these projects being like, this is gonna be fun, like we're gonna have a good time, and like we're willing to sing songs or have interesting conversations while we were doing the task, like cleaning out the ditches or whatever. Or the kids who showed up to the work project, like I was assigned to this, I don't want to be here, I don't, right? So that kind of attitude is creating inner conflict, whereas the attitude of the first type of kid that I mentioned is like they were at least in acceptance of like, okay, this is what I'm doing for the next couple hours. But often they could find states of enjoyment, if not enthusiasm, of like, this feels really good to get some, physical labor in, or, wow, look at the progress we've made on this wood pile, or, it's very impressive. We can see this with athletics too. If it's like, run a mile, or you're like, oh, I have to run a mile, this stinks, right? Then we're creating inner conflict. We're like, hey, I'm going to run a mile. I accept that. Here I go. Acceptance. Enjoyment. I get to run a mile. Like, this is great. I'm going to enjoy this, going to look at the view, going to embrace how it feels for my body to be breathing. Enthusiasm. This is such a great thing for me to do today. I'm really excited that I get to do this. So you can see this, and some circumstances in our lives are really, really, really challenging to find the enjoyment or enthusiasm options. And if we can at least stay in the state of acceptance, we will be creating more ease in our bodies, minds, and spirits. Now, where does gratitude come in? Now, gratitude comes in when we can be in a place of a little beyond acceptance, where we can really see in wherever we are, whatever's happening, our life circumstances, that there are some really good things going on. And one of the things that we really appreciate in the Vitality Circle in our process is getting in the practice of celebrating what's working. So when we ask the question, what's something that's working in your life right now? What's going well? Now, in our culture, we don't generally have conversations about that, right? When somebody says, like, how are you doing? It's often like, well, I'm doing fine. End of conversation. Or we share something that's challenging. Like, I could share today, somebody said, "How are you doing?" I could easily share, well, both of our kids have the flu, and it's kind of like a snotty coughing mess at our house. And like that's how I'm doing. Like that's a reality. That's a true reality in my life right now. And I could also say, what's working? What's going well? What's working is that our family is together, that we are warm and cozy, that I haven't gotten the flu, that David hasn't gotten the flu, that we are able to sleep really well at night, that David even painted an accent wall in our house yesterday. It's beautiful. Like there are things that are going really well. And it's not denying that these other things are happening. It's the power of the both and, right? That says, this is happening. The kids have the flu. It's a little sneezy coffee mess at our house right now. And the reality is that there's a lot of things that I'm really grateful for. I'm going to get to eat a really amazing lunch after this that David made for me. I'm so grateful for that. So grateful. It's powerful. Powerful. Oh, and Tammy's here. Tammy coaches people with this too. So she says, right, it changes the focus. And the question we should ask strangers on the street, LOL, what's going really well for you today? Yeah. So we can learn to ask those types of questions. What's going really well for you today? Or my friend Sarah Ann often asks, what's alive in you right now? So you think, wow, what's alive in me? Not like what's bringing you down right now, right? So we could take a little survey. But it begins to shift our focus. And there's this general principle that where attention goes, energy flows, right? That we have the power in our awareness, in our mindset. Where attention goes, energy flows. So cultivating gratitude is choosing your focus. You are not a victim of focus. You get to choose what you focus on. Many of us have been enculturated to look at attitude in a certain way, look at perspective from a certain lens. And guess what? You can always consciously choose to change it. It might take some practice, but you can definitely do it. So it's really about choosing what ultimately creates your well-being. So this is part of the work that I do as a health coach. Yeah. So yeah, Rachel says, I learned to describe things with and instead of but. Yes, exactly. So the kids are sick today and I'm having a really great day at work. Today is the graduation ceremony for the Autumn Vitality Circle. I'm really excited about that. It's a both and. Absolutely. Yes. Okay, so let's look at some ways that gratitude works for us. So here's a quote from Jean-Baptiste Alphonse Karr, and he says, some people grumble that roses have thorns. I'm grateful that thorns have roses. So here's a way to look at the reality of what exists and see it from the perspective of gratitude. Excellent. So gratitude fortifies us. So gratitude keeps us mentally resilient. We're looking for what else is possible. That attitude of gratitude is an attitude of curiosity. What else is here? It's a focus on creative problem solving. So here's a quote from John Wooden. He says, things turn out best for people who make the best of the way things turn out. And this is great. We'll get into looking at dosha perspective with this in just a little bit. But when we do this, right, that like we're not in control of much really in our lives. And when we can receive the reality and make the best of it, when we're at least in a state of acceptance, when we can be in a state of gratitude, oh, like, wow, what else is possible? Yeah, curiosity, gratitude go together. So we can let ourselves feel let down and out of control. And we can also turn our attention to what are we grateful for? Even with like the COVID pandemic, right? What are we grateful for? A lot of us got a lot more time at home with our loved ones. A lot of us did some really important introspective work during that time. A lot of us connected more with the land where we live. And we can be grateful for those things. So gratitude brings us back into the present moment as well. So when we tune into what are you grateful for in this moment, try it. What are you grateful for in this moment? You begin to really notice what is present in this moment. What is present in this moment? Maybe it's the warmth of the room that you're in. Maybe it's the sunshine outside. Maybe it's the smell of the lunch that is going to be served to you very soon. Or that you're excited that you got some new amazing ingredients at the farmer's market this weekend. What are you grateful for in the present moment? Gratitude also strengthens our relationships. So when we tune into what we're grateful for and we express that, it creates a deeper connection in relationship. We say, thank you so much for preparing me a meal. Thank you so much. Here's some things that I could say to David, my partner, is thank you so much for fluffing my pillow every night before we get into bed. Thank you so much for making me nourishing meals. Thank you so much for tending to our home and keeping it tidy and warm and in good repair, and always dreaming up what can happen to make it more sustainable and beautiful. That outpouring makes me feel so alive. Oh, David's watching. That sharing makes me feel so enlivened in that connection. And then David sends me hearts, right? So, and these are not things that he hasn't heard before. I am a very grateful partner when we connect in that way. And it doesn't have to be, an intimate partner. It can be a child or, an acquaintance or somebody that like your neighbor who, I don't know what, picked up your mail for you while you were on vacation or something. It strengthens relationship. So we can often overcome challenging issues when there's a lot of gratitude already cultivated in the environment that we're in. Here's a quote from Tom Hopkins. He says, keep your eyes open and try to catch people in your company doing something right, then praise them for it. Where we can thank people. Thank you so much for clearing your place after dinner. Thank you so much for putting away the laundry. Thank you so much for closing the door after you came in and it's cold outside. We also have evidence that gratitude strengthens the immune system, that our autonomic nervous system gets a little break when we're in a state of gratitude, where we're in more of the parasympathetic nervous system, so we're more in the rest and digest functioning of the body, where the systems can all come back on board. We're not in fight, flight, freeze mode. We are in rest and digest. Gratitude helps cultivate all the systems of our body functioning really well, and can often help us shift out of just being in our heads, just being in a knowing in our minds, and be in a deeper heart-centered place, or maybe even our gut, where we're trusting our gut a little bit more. So gratitude can be practiced in multiple ways. Gratitude meditations, which can be your medication, can be very, very helpful. This is a quote from Osho. It says, let this become your meditation and prayer. Thank God for every moment, or whatever you believe in, universe, goddess, divine, greater power, for laughter, for tears, for everything. Then you will see a silence arising in your heart that you have not known before. That is bliss. So when we are grateful for what is, again, there's an ease that comes into our experience. So we can meditate on gratitude. We can make gratitude lists. Many of you have probably tried this, keeping a gratitude journal even. Maybe you write down 5 things you're grateful for every night before you go to bed, and you can't repeat. So it gets a little more challenging. That challenge means that you become more present. You begin to notice more and more. So cultivating gratitude. So let's look at, or maybe you also have a practice of saying gratitude more often. So that's the way you're cultivating it, is that you are saying, I'm going to say out loud every time I'm grateful for something. So we can write about our gratitudes, we can meditate on gratitudes, and we can communicate and share it with others. And a really powerful way to start and end each day is with gratitude. So when you wake up in the morning, you might touch your heart, have a moment, just a deep breath. I'm so grateful to arrive at this day. You know, it's not guaranteed to any of us that we'll have this day. And yet here we are. We woke up again. Wow, we get to live this day. I'm so grateful. And same at the end of the day. I'm so grateful to have gotten to live this gift of the day, and I'm so grateful to receive this gift of sleep that I'm about to enjoy. Hopefully we're sleeping really well. If not, let's talk. Okay. Watch my other Tuesday talks about sleep. Okay. So we can cultivate gratitude. Let's look at gratitude from some other perspectives. So if we look at the yogic and Ayurvedic teachings about how to live a good life, in yoga, we have the yamas and niyamas. And these are basically the principles of how to live a good life. Okay? These are the first 2 limbs of the 8 limbs of yoga, or the yamas and the niyamas. And the yamas are basically what are called restraints, or things not to do. Okay, so you don't steal, you don't harm anything. Okay, then we have the niyamas. I'm not going to go through all of them today because that would take more time than we have. We have the niyamas, which are basically things that we practice. So what we could call observances, or things that we do. And one of those is santosha. And santosha literally means contentment. How do we get to contentment? We get there through practices of gratitude. So santosha often translates as contentment and is often easier said than done. A very common vritti, which is the undulations of the mind. All of us have like a lot of vrittis going on. And the Yoga Sutras speak a lot about the vrittis in the first several Yoga Sutras of like, this is what we're here to do in practicing yoga, is to still the vrittis, the undulations of the mind. So the fluctuations that are happening in the mind, some of those show up very frequently for us as things like, I will be happy when. These contingencies of like focusing on like resentment versus love, or lack versus abundance. And so we can get caught up in these mind states of scarcity, or we can focus on what are we grateful for? In what ways are things not in a state of scarcity in our lives? You know, we can tend to get caught up in money scarcity, maybe. That happens to a lot of us. We have a lot of stories around money. When we can look at in what ways are we abundant in our lives, even if there's not an overflowing bank account. It cultivates gratitude. It cultivates ease. It cultivates an awareness that we can be in a state of gratitude that then allows more alignment for abundance versus perpetuating the scarcity. Okay, so we can ease the undulations of the mind through cultivating contentment. What is working, right? Back to these questions. What is going well? Santosha encourages us to accept and appreciate what we have and what we are right now. Back to that principle of presence. Yay. And from there, we can move forward in our life and practice with more ease and contentment and gratitude. Yay. So It's also easier to practice or to be sincerely grateful for something if we can conceive of its absence. This means we don't take things for granted. If we are just like, yeah, that's just the way it is, and we never can conceive of not having something be the way it is, then we're less likely to be grateful for it. So often it's very powerful for us to look at where in our lives are we taking things for granted. Maybe it's relationships. Maybe it's having good, clean drinking water. Maybe it's whatever, getting good sleep, and showing up and being like, I am actually really grateful for that, because if that didn't exist in my life, then I would be really sad. Life would be harder. I would not be as supported, right? So we can look at focusing on gratitude from this perspective as well. So we've looked at Santosha, cultivating contentment through gratitude. Let's look at gratitude through the lens of Ayurveda and through dosha. So we know that gratitude cultivates ease, and how this shows up for each dosha. And again, I'm going to simplify here because none of us are just one pure dosha, but most of us have a doshic predominance. So if you are Vata predominant, meaning air and ether are your predominant elements, and you tend towards being anxious, overwhelmed, flighty, scattered, cultivating gratitude is very grounding for that energy. And Vata energy can often sometimes lead to the mental pattern of feeling separate, that we don't belong, that there's not a lot of connection happening. So when we shift the lens towards gratitude, then we begin to see actually the ways in which we are connected. We start feeling grateful for the ways in which we are supported. So that eases the tension and anxiety of Vata. For Pitta, there tends to be an overwhelming amount of perfectionism, of competition, and needing things to be linear and logical. Anybody relate? So when we bring in gratitude to a Pitta predominant mind, we're cultivating ease in that we can acknowledge what's already working well, as we've talked about. And that begins to shift the focus away from what needs to change or what should be different towards what is working and what can we celebrate. We can go, it leads to a little more ease, a little more lightness, a little more celebration there, shifting away from that really rigid way of thinking about things, because there's a lot that we can focus on that is working. Great. And then for Kapha, there's a tendency towards stagnation or lethargy. And Kapha is naturally, if it's balanced, in more of a state of gratitude, more of a recognition of what's working, of how things are great. If any of you have taken the little class that I do during the One Habit to Thrive about our doshic tendencies in relationships, Kapha is the perspective of, is something wrong? Like Pitta says something's wrong with you, Vata says what's wrong with me, and Kapha says, is there something wrong? And so that natural state for Kapha is a cultivation of ease, of ojas, our essential vitality sap. So we can really learn a lot from this Kapha energy of earth and water that's grounded, that's like, here we are, we're here, we're present, and this is good. And look at the way, how are things good? Not that you wouldn't work to change things, but that you're not only focusing on what you want to change. So the last thing I'm going to go a little bit over. The last thing I wanted to focus on is cultivating gratitude, specifically for everything that is happening right now that makes everything work. So we can look at the macrocosm and the microcosm. The macrocosm is the whole universe. Like the planets are still spinning, right? They're not colliding with each other. The sun is still shining. It faithfully rises every day. We faithfully can follow the tides, the moon, right? How amazing those things are. Now let's look at, and we can look at like coming in from the solar system in towards, how are things like, yeah, the cars that are outside my office right now are driving on the correct side of the road. They're not crashing. Like things are going well, right? We can also look at what's happening inside our bodies. Inside our bodies. What is happening that's going well in this moment that's allowing you to even be here watching this and hearing my words? So much. Like we're breathing, our blood's circulating, our bodies are able to move, like our eyes can watch this, right? We can know that we are sensing that we're getting hungry or that we are satiated. We sense there's moisture in our mouths, our eyes are able to blink. Like a lot is happening, right? So we tend to really focus on our minds, and the minds drive the body. And what I want to encourage us to do is to, as we're focusing on cultivating gratitude during this time of the year of Thanksgiving, to also focus on our other ways of knowing. So I'm going to read you just a paragraph out of this book. It's called Cured, The Life-Changing Science of Spontaneous Healing by Jeffrey Redger. And I am really enjoying this book. I'm about halfway through it. So this is something I read the other night and I was like, oh, this ties in to gratitude. So think of how often you've used the phrases gut feeling or broken heart or told someone you had butterflies in your stomach. You feel different emotions in different parts of your body for a good reason. These areas are hotbeds of neuroreceptors. Yay! So this is what Ayurveda is known for 5,000 years about the body. But, we need to relearn a lot of things. Okay, so research is showing that we actually have 3 brains: the head brain, the heart brain, and the gut brain. And our health and development depend on keeping them in balance and alignment. Most of us are very out of balance. We only give any attention to our head brain. So with the vagus nerve as a connecting cord, emotions flood through our systems in the form of neural messages and hormones. Some signals begin in the gut or the heart and flow upstream to the head brain, while others cascade from above. In this way, our thoughts and emotions have both instant and long-lasting effects on all our biological systems: nervous, endocrine, and immune. So I hope that is really powerful to think about and to feel about, to think about in our 3 brains, that we have all these different ways of knowing. And I invite you today to tune into an organ in your body and check in to see what it's grateful for. Maybe it's your liver, maybe it's your heart, maybe it's your lungs, maybe it's your kidneys, maybe it's your bladder. Like, what are you grateful for in the organs? Like, what can they communicate? And starting perhaps with either your mind, your heart, or your gut. So I hope you all have a fabulous Thanksgiving, tuning into gratitude, noticing what is working in any situation you are in. What can you focus on? Where attention goes, energy flows. Can you be in a state of at least acceptance, if not enjoyment or enthusiasm? Let me know how it goes. Thank you all for being here. And I'll be back next week with another Tuesday Talk with Hannah. Take care.